Subhanallah, I think the heat is getting to all of us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullahu khaira. I will keep this nice, short and concise bi'idhnillah al-azim. First of all, say Jazakumullahu khairan again for your patience. Jazakumullahu khairan for your cooperation. Alhamdulillah, making things easy on the management and the volunteers. Now, inshallah, without delaying any further, I would like to pass, inshallah, to stage 2, our dear beloved Ustadh Tim Humble, to finish the second part of the introduction of Ibn Rajab, rahimahullah, which is his life, his works, and the benefits he's done for the ummah. May Allah bless you all. Jazakumullah khair.
You good here? Yeah? Okay, inshallah. Okay. Jazakumullah khair. Happy, yeah? Good to go? Okay. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. والصلاة والسلام على عبد الله ورسوله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. أما بعد. First of all, it's a pleasure to be in Masjid Alfurqan again. And I say again, and I'm sure Sheikh Muhammad Ali is going to say you don't come enough for all the times that he asked me to come, and subhanallah. But alhamdulillah, wallah, it's a real pleasure. And it's a pleasure to see all of you and to see some people that I saw very recently in a completely different country. May Allah reward all of you for your efforts, and may Allah Azza wa Jal reward the administration of the masjid and everyone who is involved in organizing this Dawrah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to place it heavy upon the scale of their good deeds and your good deeds and ours, Yawm al-Qiyamah. In the second part of the life or the introduction to Al-Imam Al-Hafidh ibn Rajab, rahimahullah ta'ala, after Sheikh Abdurrahman, hafidhahullah ta'ala, mentioned to you about Ibn Rajab's personal life, about the environment that he grew up in, a little bit about what was happening at the time, and somewhat of his family background. We're going to be speaking about the second side of a person's biography, which is his achievements in terms of knowledge, and where does this Imam Al-Hafidh ibn Rajab stand in terms of knowledge and in terms of what he left as a legacy for this ummah. And there might be some points of overlap. I will try, where I see there's an overlap with what Sheikh Abdurrahman said, to just kind of mention that that's already been mentioned, and we'll kind of skip over it so that we don't take too much time. I'm conscious that as much as I would love to do this until the middle of the night, I also am conscious that we have a program tomorrow as well, so we want everyone to be able to attend that. So we'll try to keep it reasonably summarized, inshaAllah ta'ala. So the first thing that we want to note about the seeking knowledge and the phase of how Al-Hafidh ibn Rajab rahimahullah ta'ala learned is that he began seeking knowledge at a very young age. And I think you've already heard from Sheikh Abdurrahman that he was born into a family of knowledge. His father and his grandfather, of course he's named after his grandfather, were both people of knowledge. And you would expect someone who's brought up in an environment where their father and their grandfather are people of knowledge, that he's going to start seeking knowledge at a very early age. He mentions attending durus where he was too young even to gather or to grasp everything that was said in the dars. And he specifically says, with regard to one of his teachers who is he is Ali ibn Ahmad al-Baghdadi, and he says, قَرَأْتُ عَلَيْهِ وَأَنَا فِي الْخَامِسَةِ. He said, I read to him when I was 5 years old. When I was 5 years old. So he was very, very young. And even if you look at some of the mashayikh that he stuck to and that he was close to, and you see the time that they died, you see how much this Imam achieved at a very, very young age. We're going to speak about his mashayikh in detail, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, in a moment. But before that, I think it's very important always when we go to study the works of any Imam that we should understand his aqeedah. And we should understand what beliefs he held and he called to in his works. And Ibn Rajab rahimahullah ta'ala, he was upon the aqeedah of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. And there are numerous evidences for this. From this is his statement in the book Fadlu Ilm al-Salaf ala Ilm al-Khalaf, and we're going to be covering this book inshaAllah ta'ala. He said, وَالصَّوَابُ مَا عَلَيْهِ السَّلَفُ الصَّالِحِ مِنْ إِمْرَارِ آيَاتِ الصِّفَاتِ وأحاديثها من غير تفسير لها ولا تكييف ولا تمثيل. The correct view is that which the Salaf al-Salih were upon, passing the ayat which describe Allah down and the ahadith which describe Allah as the Prophet ﷺ said them, and passing the ayat as Allah said them without trying to hear tafsir. It means ta'wil. Yani without trying to falsely interpret the meaning or change the meaning, and without asking how, and without Allah resembling, or without you making Allah to resemble His creation. And he also, yani there's a discussion of in the book Al-Dhayl ala Tabaqat al-Hanabila, the mention of a situation that happened with Ibn Fawrak. And Ibn Fawrak, as those of you who done Al-Madrasa Al-Umariyya and the introduction to Al-Firaq wal-Iftiraq, you know that Ibn Fawrak was one of the ulama of the Asha'ira. And Ibn Fawrak mentions the issue here with regard to Al-Fawqiyya, the highness of Allah Azza wa Jal, in which he's bringing this false idea and this question over whether Allah is described with al-ulu wal-fawqiyya, highness and being above. And the Ibn Fawrak brought this shubha. And he said that if I were to describe Allah as being above, this would necessitate that you describe Him as being below. That it's not supposed to make any sense, because generally these things they say don't make any sense. But that's what they said. Because he said, من جاز أن يكون له فوق جاز أن يكون له تحت. He said if something can be described as being above, so at some point it can be described as being below. So the one who was debating with him said, ليس أنا وصفته بالفوقية. I'm not the one who described Allah as being above. So that you say to me that I described Him as being above, so He must also be below. وَإِنَّمَا هُوَ وَصَفَ نَفْسَهُ بِذَلِكَ. He's the one who described Himself. For this issue is not to do with Ibn Rajab. This is something he's mentioning, a story that's being mentioned. And he said, فَبُهِتَ. And his argument was defeated. He had nothing left to say. For that indicates that Ibn Rajab was someone who affirmed the highness of Allah Azza wa Jal and didn't accept the arguments that they brought that you can't describe Him as being above, because if you describe Him as being above, you must describe Him as being below, and so on. But this is just a glimpse into the aqeedah of Al-Hafidh ibn Rajab rahimahullah ta'ala. On this point, remember what Shaykh Abdul Rahman said to you. regarding the issue of at-tasawwuf. Because like Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah ta'ala, Ibn Rajab rahimahullah, there is going to be a question mark brought. Bear in mind that the Sufiya claim a lot of people to belong to them, right? That this is a very famous thing. They like to claim so and so. And it's not like unusual. You'll see it from, and they'll mention, for example, that Al-Hasan al-Basri and Fudayl ibn Iyad and Ibrahim ibn Adham and Malik ibn Dinar. They bring all kinds of people that they will say this person was one of us. But this, Shaykh Abdul Rahman has explained to you the environment that he grew up in. But also bear in mind that the reality of the Sufiya, if we're talking about from an Aqidah point of view, is that first of all, you have two types of tasawwuf, right? Or Sufism. You have Sufism meaning an exaggeration in zuhd, without the fasad in the Aqidah that was there later on, without the corruption in Aqidah. And if you, again in Al-Madrasa Al-Umariyah, when we spoke about the Sufiya, we explained that the early Sufiya, no doubt there was an exaggeration in zuhd, but it didn't come with all of the corrupt Aqidah that came later on. It wasn't there. And these early Sufiya were not like those who came later. The likes, even those, the likes of Al-Junayd, for example, even what is said about Bishr al-Hafi, and others, these were not like those who came later in terms of the issues of Aqidah that came about. So quoting them is not like quoting the ones who came later with all of their corrupt Aqidah that Allah is in every place, and when I make sajda to myself, and these like extreme beliefs that came later on. They had no part in that. So quoting the likes of Al-Junayd, rahimahullah ta'ala, and others, it doesn't in itself affect the person's Aqidah at all. Secondly, quoting someone doesn't mean that you accepted everything that they have to say or everything that they did. You're quoting someone in something good that they brought. This person brought something good, and Shaykh Abdul Rahman mentioned to you the issue of the truth, and we take it from where it comes from. But also, if you look at Ibn Rajab and you look at his statements, you see that this was not his methodology in himself. Rather, the main reason this label is attached to him is because of Tazkiyatun Nafs. And the reality is that the Sufiya kind of grabbed this topic and made it their own. And people saw it that if you speak about Tazkiyatun Nafs, and you speak about the Ruh, and you speak about the issue of the heart, and you speak about connecting yourself to Allah, then you must be Sufi. Without them really having an evidence for what they brought, without them having a strong basis to say something to attach Ibn Rajab to that. Rather, what they did is they just saw that Ibn Rajab speaks about these topics and they attached him to it. Rather, Ibn Rajab speaks about it like Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah ta'ala, speaks about it. And this shubha, to be honest with you, is a confusion that still is said about Ibn al-Qayyim today. You can still find people today who are saying Ibn al-Qayyim is a Sufi. If Ibn al-Qayyim is a Sufi, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah must be min kibar al-Mutasawwifa, right? Must be from the big Sufis. Wallah, it's just, everyone makes a claim to bring people like this, big Imams like this, they want them to be with them. But in reality, as we see, speaking about Zuhd and Tazkiyatun Nafs, and speaking about what some of the early Zuhad, which is better than to call them the Sufiya, because they were not really Sufiya per se. The early Zuhad used to say about Zuhd and keeping away from the dunya. This doesn't harm at all, insha'Allah ta'ala. But we said his aqeedah is the aqeedah of Ahl Sunnah. With regard to his position in fiqh. One of the things you're going to see about Al-Hafiz ibn Rajab rahimahullah ta'ala is that his knowledge was not limited to a particular field, as many people become known for example, hadith, or they become known for their contribution to fiqh, or they become known for their contribution to aqeedah, or they become known for their contribution to, for example, they're known as a wa'idh and someone who touched the people's hearts. Ibn Rajab brought many areas of knowledge together where he became extremely well known in that particular field. So he was extremely well known within the science of fiqh. And he has, within the issue of al-furu' al-fiqhiyya, he's upon the madhab of Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala, and he has very, very important works. And he has significant contributions to the madhab of Imam Ahmad and organizing the views. Ibn Abdul Hadi rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, وَلَهُ تَحْقِيقٌ في المسائل على نصوص أحمد وكلام الأصحاب. He has يعني تحقيق, the issue of sorting out which view is correct and coming to the right view and being able to deal with the precise differences with regard to what is narrated from Ahmad and his companions. And he has things that he brought, yani views within fiqh and masail, that a person can't count the number of them. وَتَفَقَّحْ عَلَيْهِ جَمَاعَةٌ مِّنَ الْأَكَابِرِ. And a large group of the senior scholars of fiqh took fiqh from him. As for his status in ilm al-hadith, Al-Hafiz ibn Hajar rahimahullah ta'ala, and you know who is Al-Hafiz ibn Hajar. He said, رافق شيخنا زين الدين العراقي في السماع كثيرا. He mentions Zayn al-Din al-Iraqi rahimahullah ta'ala, and you know his position in terms of the Shaykh of Al-Hafiz ibn Hajar, his position in the science of hadith. And he mentions Ibn Rajab along with him. And then he mentions his knowledge في فنون الحديث أسماء ورجالا وعللا وطرقا واطلاعا على معانيه. He mentions his knowledge of the names of the narrators and his knowledge of their state and the knowledge of the hidden defects of hadith. And ilal is the hardest of the sciences of hadith. There's nothing harder than al-ilal. It's the hardest branch of the branches of hadith. Ibn Rajab was an expert in it. His knowledge of the chains of narration and his knowledge of the meanings, and this is a rarity, I personally find. It's quite rare to find an imam who was an imam in mustalah al-hadith, rijal and ilal and turuq, and he's also an imam in sharh al-hadith, explaining the hadith. For Ibn Rajab, when we come to his works, we're going to see that he has an explanation of Jami' Tirmidhi, also of part of Sahih Bukhari. So he's explaining he has Jami' al-Ulum wal-Hikam in the 40 hadith of Imam al-Nawawi. So he's explaining the meanings behind it. At the same time, he has Sharh Ilal al-Tirmidhi, which is an explanation of one of the most important books in the science of ilal, which is a branch of mustalah al-hadith. So he's someone who isn't just a scholar of hadith in terms of chains and narrators, but in terms of meaning and sharh. And he's not just someone who's doing that, but also taking the fiqh from it as well. For this shows the completeness of the different sciences that Ibn Rajab had, rahimahullah ta'ala. It was said about him, al-Imam al-Hafidh al-Hujjah, al-Faqih al-Umdah, أحد العلماء الزهاد والأئمة عباد مفيد المحدثين وواعظ المسلمين. How they describe him: Imam, Hafiz, Hujjah, Faqih, Umdah. He's an Imam, he's a Hafiz, he's an Imam, he's a great memorizer, he's a great scholar of fiqh. He is one of the ulama who's known for zuhd. And you're known for zuhd and ibadah, and you're also known for ilm and fiqh. He's known for the benefit that he brings to the scholars of hadith and the way that he used to admonish the general people. As for his shuyukh, they are many. And just looking at a simple list of his shuyukh, it goes to 40 or 41 of them. So I'm not going to mention every single one of them. Lakin we'll mention here some of them bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. From them, and I'm just going to pick out some names that you might know: Salahuddin Abu Sa'id Khalil ibn Kikildi al-Ala'i, who died 761 after the Hijrah, and Ibn Rajab heard from him in Al-Quds. As for those that he heard in Damashq, among them are Jamaluddin Abu Sulaiman Dawood ibn Ibrahim al-Attar, who died 752 after the Hijrah, and he heard from him in Damascus. From those that he heard from in Baghdad, Najmuddin Abu Hamid Sulaiman ibn Ahmad al-Baghdadi al-Faqih, who died 748 after the Hijrah. From those that he heard from in Egypt and Mecca, Izzuddin Abdul Aziz ibn Muhammad ibn Ibrahim ibn Sa'id ibn Jama'ah, who died 767. From those that he heard from, we mentioned, or it has been mentioned to you already, Al-Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, who is Shamsuddin Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr ibn Ayyub, who died 751 after the Hijrah. And he heard from him in Damascus. And from those who he heard from, Siraj ad-Din Abu Hafs Umar ibn Ali ibn Umar al-Qazwini, who was known as Muhaddith al-Iraq. And he read to him in Baghdad. There's a huge number. There's more than we have time to cover. Like, and if you go back to the list of his mashayikh, you're going to see somewhere in the region of 40 or 41 of the mashayikh. He heard also from his grandfather. And it's worth noting that he heard from his grandfather, who died 742 after the Hijrah. And this was in Baghdad while there were people reading to his grandfather, and he was present in the gathering. As for his students, then his students are again many. Perhaps we can just select a few of them instead of going through all of them. But we can select for example, Abu al-Abbas Ahmad ibn Abi Bakr ibn Sayf ad-Din al-Hanbali, who died 844 after the Hijrah. Muhibb ad-Din Abu al-Fadl Ahmad ibn Nasrillah ibn Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Umar, who is known as Mufti ad-Diyar al-Misriya. died 844. Dawood ibn Sulaiman ibn Abdullah al-Mawsili al-Dimishqi al-Hanbali, who died, he died 844, if I'm not right, mistaken there, 844 now. And there are many, wallahi, to be honest with you. We can take from them Shams ad-Din Muhammad ibn Ahmad ibn Sa'id al-Maqdisi. It's also from among them. And if you go to the list of his students, wallahi, there are a lot. There's a lot of them. They mention at least from them 17 or so of the major students that he was that were known from that. If we go on to the works that he left behind, so we're going to divide his works into topics. We're going to talk about his works in hadith and his works in fiqh, and we're going to talk about his works in explaining specific hadith. We're going to talk about, inshallah ta'ala, his general works in advice and admonition and so on. So from the works that he's known for in hadith is the explanation of Jami' al-Tirmidhi. And it's said that if this work had been found complete from beginning to end, we wouldn't need another explanation of Jami' al-Tirmidhi. Like, what is found from it is only a small part of Kitab al-Libas and the Sharh of Ilal al-Tirmidhi. For the whole Sharh of Tirmidhi, vast majority of it is lost to us. He has a Sharh of Sahih al-Bukhari called Fath al-Bari, the same name as the Sharh of Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar. But he only explained a part of Bukhari until Kitab al-Janaiz. Ibn Abdul Hadi said, وَهُوَ مِنْ عَجَائِبِ الدَّهْرِ. It's from the wondrous works that were produced at this time. If he had finished it, it would be an amazing thing. Of course, the book of Ibn Hajar, Fath al-Bari, it came after. But Ibn Hajar doesn't mention it among the works that he benefited from in writing Fath al-Bari. Ibn Hajar doesn't mention it, and he doesn't mention Ibn Rajab among either. Any from those that he benefited from. Jami' al-Ulum wal-Hikam. And for those of you who have studied and memorized the 40 hadith of Imam al-Nawawi, that al-Nawawi left 42 hadith. And Al-Hafidh ibn Rajab added to it. He added 8 hadith that fulfill the same condition that Imam al-Nawawi wrote the 40 hadith for. So in total, when you memorize the 40 hadith, you're memorizing 42 hadith from al-Nawawi and 8 hadith that Ibn Rajab brought. And then Ibn Rajab explained them all of the 50 in Jami' al-Ulum wal-Hikam. We also have Sharh Ilal al-Tirmidhi. And he explained Al-Ilal al-Saghir by al-Tirmidhi. And this is the hardest, as we said, science of hadith. So to have an explanation upon it, it shows the extent of the knowledge of Ibn Rajab and how deep his knowledge of the science of hadith was. And in reality, this is a book فعلا لا يستغني عنه طالب حديث. And it's not possible for a student of hadith to go through studying hadith and not go through the Sharh Ilal al-Tirmidhi by Imam ibn Rajab rahimahullah ta'ala. He has many rasail in which he explains only a single hadith. This is a very unique thing, Ibn Rajab. Not only Ibn Rajab, but it's very popular. You can spot Ibn Rajab straight away, where he has these explanation of just one hadith. So he has an explanation of the hadith, "Man salaka tariqan yaltamisu fihi ilma." Whoever sets on a path to seek knowledge. And he has the explanation. Each one is a separate work. He has explanation of the hadith, "Ma dhi'bani ja'i'an." And that's part of the AMAU's syllabus. He has the explanation of the hadith, "Labbaik Allahumma labbaik." The explanation of the hadith, "Allahumma bi'ilmika al-ghayb." The explanation of the hadith, "Mathal al-Islam." He has more than, you can say, 15 and more, which are single ahadith. "Bada al-Islamu ghariban." He has also يتبع الميت ثلاث. Three things follow the dead person. صدقة السر. He has اختصام الملأ الأعلى. And the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas, which will be explained inshallah ta'ala in the Dawrah, I believe, at some point, either maybe in London, which is the hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas, احفظ الله يحفظك. And these are all individual hadith that Ibn Rajab explains it in its own separate work. And they reach in the region of between 15 to 20 of them. As for in fiqh, he has al-Qawa'id al-Fiqhiyya, in which he speaks about 160 of the principles of fiqh. And he also speaks about the virtue of these principles and the importance of the principles in the madhab. He has a book called Al-Istikhraj fi Ahkam al-Kharaj, which is printed also. He has a work on the ruling of Khawatim, the issue of a man wearing a silver ring. He has نزهة الأسماع في مسألة السماع, with the issue of music, the ruling of music and musical instruments. And he has الرد على من اتبع غير المذاهب الأربعة, the refutation of someone who follows other than the four madhahib. This work is translated into English. The refutation of those who follow other than the four madhahib. It needs, to be honest, it needs a good sharh of it, to be honest with you, because it's a complicated issue. Of course, Ibn Rajab takes the view in it that he's refuting those people who don't attribute themselves to one of the four madhahib. But he also speaks about the virtue of memorizing the Quran and the Sunnah and taking the views of the Salaf and so on. Like, in his view, is that has to be done within the context of the four madhahib. He has some works, other works in fiqh, also the issue of Ru'yat al-Hilal and the issue of ikhraj al-zakah ala al-fawr, giving the zakah. Zakah has to be given immediately. And other works that reach perhaps 13, 14 different works on the topic of fiqh. He then has many other works on different topics. They include tafsir. He has tafsir Surah Al-Nasr, tafsir Surah Al-Ikhlas, an explanation of the ayah, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. He has tafsir of Surah Al-Falaq. He has other works on the topic of the Quran, I'rab, Al-Basmala, and Surah Al-Fatiha, and other works on that topic. He also has a lot of works which is very well known on the topic of Al-Raqa'iq wal-Fada'il, the topic of the heart softeners, also the issue of history and seer. Numerous works like التخويف من النار, and being fearful of the fire. لطائف المعارف, الفرق بين النصيحة والتعيير, فضل علم السلف على علم الخلف, and that's the book inshallah we're gonna take, the virtue of the knowledge of the salaf over the knowledge of the khalaf. The book التوحيد, and it's also called تحقيق كلمة الإخلاص, establishing or يعني implementing the كلمة الإخلاص, لا إله إلا الله. Has a book on فضائل الشام, the virtue of the month of Rajab. He has سيرة عبد الملك بن عبد العزيز, شعب الإيمان, a huge number of works. In fact, if we take his smaller works like this, we can reach 30 of his smaller works, all on different topics. منافع الإمام أحمد, topics on the issue of topics on for example صفة النار, topics on the topic of Sirah. He has a book on the topic of Badr. Many books, subhanallah. The virtue of the sacred house in Mecca, الذيل على طبقات الحنابلة, and so many different works. Now if we look at this goes to easily you can reach nearly 50 works or more than 50 works, depending on how you count them. On hadith, on fiqh, in mustalah, on raqa'iq, heart softness, seer, tarikh. That's a huge amount of works. And a lot of his works, not all of them, but a lot of them are gathered together in his Majmu' Rasail. He has a collection of the Rasail of Ibn Rajab. It's been out for a while, but there's any improvements. So it has a lot of the Rasail and the works of Ibn Rajab all collected into one place. And in fact, in the beginning, there's a nice biography of Ibn Rajab there in the beginning. And likewise, in there, they mention, if they go through all the books of Ibn Rajab, and they mention which of them are included and which of them are not included, and which of them are found and lost. Like, the number that is lost is small compared to the number that we have. And a lot of the books that we have of Ibn Rajab are available to us. Some of them are lost in part. Like, for example, if we had the Sharh of Jami' al-Tirmidhi, or it would be something else, or the full Sharh of Sahih al-Bukhari. Like, these are only, like Jami' al-Tirmidhi is only a tiny amount found. And in any case, for Bukhari, he only reached up to the beginning of the book. Like, this is a little bit about the life of Ibn Rajab in terms of the knowledge and his legacy in terms of knowledge. Those who want to go back, if you just, as a simple reference, if you just go back to the very beginning of his collection of Rasail, Majmu' Rasail, you'll see the list of his shuyukh and students and everything in full detail, inshallah ta'ala. And as for the AMAU, a little link to AMAU, the issue of Al-Madrasah Al-Umariyah, Sheikh Abdul Rahman told you, Al-Madrasah Al-Umariyah was there at the time, because Al-Madrasah Al-Umariyah, we talk about it was the middle of the 500s and then the early 600s. So it was there before the time of Ibn Rajab. Like, Ibn Rajab did take from a number of the Maqdisiyin, those who were from the descendants of the founder of Al-Madrasah Al-Umariyah, and his brother, founder is Abu Umar, and also the two sons of Sheikh Ahmed Al-Maqdisi. For he took from them, and they were from his shuyukh, and from the grandsons or any descendants of those mashayikh that he took from. And for they're all listed in his list of mashayikh and the list of the students that he took from. For those who want to go back to it in more detail, can find it there, inshallah ta'ala. So I think that's a good place for us to stop because of the time that we have. We try to make it as short as we possibly could. And inshallah ta'ala, tomorrow we're going to get into the heart of it, inshallah ta'ala. And bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, we're going to get into explaining the books that we came to explain, inshallah ta'ala. And I think for me, the book that we're going to be doing together is Fadlu Ilm al-Salaf, the virtue of the knowledge of the Salaf over the knowledge of the Khalaf, inshallah ta'ala. I hope that was beneficial, and that's what Allah Azza wa Jal made easy for me to mention. Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Salatu wassalamu ala nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.
Can I hear a big Jazakumullah khairan to our dear Ustadh Tim Humble? Jazakallah khairah. May Allah bless all the people who have come here, our Ustadhs, our Mashayikh, the volunteers. And Alhamdulillah, you know, I personally have benefited a lot, and I know a lot of us all here have. So, bi'idhnillah al-azim, I know some of us are tired, it's quite late, and we need to wake up tomorrow morning early for Fajr, so I'm not going to make this very long. I just want to say thank you all for coming here, thank you all for making things easy for us, and alhamdulillah, I hope to see you guys tomorrow morning. The books and the sessions, bi'idhnillah al-azim, will start soon after Fajr. So make sure, inshallah, to get a nice close row for Fajr, so you can get as close as you can to the Mashayikh. بإذن الله العظيم بارك الله فيكم and جزاكم الله خيرا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.